and welcome back to the Rogues of the Garage channel. We are continuing on with our adventure into purchasing cards from the Outlaws of Thunderjunction set from Magic the Gathering. This is episode 4, I believe. Again, if you're unfamiliar with the premise, I've purchased as many cards as possible from the Outlaws of Thunderjunction set. I enjoy Westerns. I figured if I was going to get back into Magic, this would be the set that I would kind of pour my resources into. I've purchased a lot of cards, and I still have more to go, by the way. I still have plenty. I was doing the math on it, and there's still a lot of money to be spent. However, if you've been with us for the first 3 episodes, you've seen us open several envelopes filled with cards associated with Outlaws of Thunderjunction, and we will continue that journey today. With that said, let's begin. And what do we have? Riku of Many Paths. A red, blue, green. 3/3, red, blue, green. Human wizard. So whenever you cast a modal spell, choose up to X, where X is the number of times you choose a mode for that spell. Exile the top card of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play it. Put a +1/+1 counter on Riku. It gains trample until the end of turn. Ooh, that could be useful. Or create a 1/1 blue bird creature token with flying. Add this little cut in. Originally when I pulled Riku out of the envelope, I figured there's only one card. But after turning the cameras off, after pulling out the sleeve for Riku, I quickly realized there were multiple cards that came in. So not only was there Riku of the Many Paths, there was Wily Duke, 1 white, 1 green, 1 colorless for a 4/2 with Vigilance. Whenever Wily Duke becomes tapped, you gain 1 life and draw a card. So we had Wily Duke that came in, as well as Roxanne, Starfall Savant, 1 green, 1 red, 3 colorless for a 4/3. Whenever Roxanne Star Savant enters the battlefield or attacks, create a tapped colorless artifact token named Meteorite when Meteorite enters the battlefield, it deals 2 damage to any target, and tap to add 1 mana of any color. Whenever you tap an artifact token for mana, add 1 mana of any type that artifact token produced. Vladimir, New Blood. It looks to be the extended art version, I believe. 2/2 for 1 black, 1 colorless. Whenever you commit a crime, put a +1/+1 counter on Vlad. So that's not a bad ability. Crimes are anytime you do anything nefarious to an opponent. That could be attack the opponent, deal damage to the opponent. I believe there's a few other things that qualify. So in an aggro deck, I would assume Vlad's not a bad card, particularly if you could get him out early. And we have Collector's Cage. It belongs to the Big Score expansion or sheet. 1 white, 1 colorless. Has a hideaway 5. This artifact enters the battlefield. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. Exile 1 face down. Then put the rest on the bottom at random. Pay 1. Tap it. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Then if you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, you may play the exiled card without pay. That's interesting. I could see that being useful, particularly if you have a very expensive creature that you pull early. Maybe you could get Collector's Cage out and start adding those counters so that you can bring that expensive card into play earlier than normal. Artifact, 1 white, 1 colorless. I don't know if this came in with the Collector's Cage or if it came in with previous card, the first card I opened, but we got the Meteorite token. I've had several other tokens from the Outlaws of Thunderjunction sets and expansions. This is my first Meteorite. So again, it's a token artifact. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 2 damage to a target, and you can tap it for any 1 mana. I think that's actually very handy. All right. We have breaking news, Essence Capture, 2 blue, counter target creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on top of that target creature you control. Seems pretty nifty. There's a second card in here. Ah, yes. Back for More. 1 green, 1 black, 4 others. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. When you do, it fights up to 1 creature you don't control. A little bit of recursion there, right? You'll be able to bring back a creature from the graveyard. It's not cheap. 6 total casting cost is not cheap, but oftentimes I think black-green creatures, particularly green creatures, tend to be expensive anyway. All right, so you're looking at probably bringing back a very strong creature, if not one that has multiple abilities. We have Villainous Wealth, the breaking news version. 1 blue, 1 green, 1 black, X. Target opponent exiles the top X cards from their library. You may cast any number of the spells with mana value X or less from those without paying their mana cost. To me, I see this would be a really nice card if you're playing an opponent that has a lot of chump blockers, a lot of low mana cost creatures. You can get yourself several of those for the X cost. Hindering Light. 1 blue, 1 white, instant. Counter target spell that targets you or permanent you control. Draw a card. I like that a lot, actually. I think it's cheap. Granted, it has to be a spell that targets you or one of your cards, but I assume that's going to be most of your counter spells anyway. I guess there are universal cards, or rather cards that target the entire battlefield instead of you or one of your creatures specifically. But in general, I feel like most of the counters would be used to protect yourself. And here we have the base version, at least for Outlaws of Thunder Junction, the big score, the base version of the Sword of Wealth and Power. There are other versions. I've ordered one other version, and they get very expensive. This one's not cheap in and of itself. I believe this one's around $20 or so currently as of time of recording. But the other versions of the sword, and again, I say other versions, it does the exact same thing, but the artwork, the style becomes far more expensive than this version. But even then, you get you're getting the same item, correct? So, 3 colorless for a +2/+2. Whenever the creature deals damage to a player, you get a treasure token. When you cast your next instance or sorcery this turn, copy it or essentially fork it, at least in my mind, as an old player. That's what I think of as fork. And you get to choose different targets for that spell. So I think a very cheap card for what it does. It only has an equip cost of 2. So a very nice little artifact to add to decks, particularly I think aggro decks, or hell, even weenie decks, really, if you can get a character out early and just start kind of pinging your opponents. Really nice card to have. Feels like we got several cards here. All right, the first is the Bristle Bud Farmer. 2 green, 2 colors for a 5/5. Wow, that feels cheap for a 5/5. With Trample. When it enters the battlefield, create 2 food tokens. I think food tokens are really nice. Have to play against a friend constantly who plays the Lord of the Rings deck built around food tokens. I believe it's I say built around. It has other mechanics. It's the deck with Frodo and Sam as the commanders. And I tell you, that friend creates all sorts of food tokens. Life gets out of control. But anyway, bringing this back to the Bristlebud Farmer, you're able to create a couple of food tokens when it enters play. What else does he do? When he attacks, you may sacrifice food. If you do, mill 3 cards. You may put a permanent card from among them in your hand. I don't know that second ability is that great. But again, a 5/5 for 4 mana with Trample, and it creates up to 6 life for you. That's not bad. Nexus of Becoming. Artifact. Costs 6, colorless. At the beginning of combat and your turn, draw a card. Then you may exile an artifact or creature card from your hand. If you do, create a token that's a copy of the exiled card, except it's a 3/3 Golem artifact creature in addition to its other types. So that's interesting, right? You're going to get a 3/3 creature, which I believe you want to be careful with that, though, because the creature could be killed, and I assume if the creature's killed, the artifact goes along with it. However, to me, I just think of utility. particularly if you're running an artifact-heavy deck. It just feels like this provides some versatility. You can cast your spells, your artifacts, and then in addition to that, by the way, you've now got a 3/3 golem that's available to maybe chump block or even do a little bit of damage. Memory Vessel. 2 red, 3 colorless artifact. Exile Memory Vessel. Each player exiles the top 7 cards of their library until your next turn. Players may play cards they exiled this way, and they can't play cards from their hand. Activate only as a sorcery. Interesting. I'm sure there are decks where this is useful. I can maybe see a situation where you've even milled your hand down. I mean, maybe that's where it is. You've kind of milled your hand down. You've got a small number of cards remaining, and you need to get things on the board. You need to get access to spells, whether they be instances, sorceries, creatures. You just need to get access immediately. So I can see where this would be handy. 5 mana seems a bit pricey, but I can also see where if you get in that situation where you are low on cards in hand, the Memory Vessel would be a nice way to refill your options. Territory Forge, 1 red, 4 colorless. It's an artifact. When Territory Forge enters the battlefield, if you cast it, exile target artifact or land. Territory Forge has all activated abilities of the exiled card. I'm not sure off the top of my head what I would do with that. I am a casual player, and I am a low-level casual player at that. But off the top of my head, I'm not sure that I would have much use for this, but I assume that high-level players could probably abuse something like this. And then finally, a gnome token. In collecting the Outlaws of Thunder Junction, I'm also trying to collect all of the tokens associated with the set and its expansions/sheets. I did not yet have this gnome token, and so I was glad to pick it up for less than $1. Looks like we have Pest Control. Base version of Pest Control. Destroy all non-land permanents with mana value 1 or less. I think that is very interesting. So if you're talking about getting rid of tokens, I would assume. That's what I gotta think this is for. This gets rid of tokens. And there are plenty of... that in playing Commander, that's one of the things I've started to realize, getting back into Magic. It feels to me that a lot of Commander decks are built around token creation. So it feels like Pest Control is a direct counter to those style of decks. Now, granted, it's a one-time wipe of tokens, but in the right situation, at the right moment, that's all you need. Railway Brawler. 2 green, 3 colorless. For a 5/5 with reach and trample. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is its power. That, to me, is incredibly powerful. It has a plot 3 +1 green. Man, a 5/5 for 5 with reach, trample, and that ability, creating counters for other creatures. I think it's a very, very powerful card. All right. What do we have here? All right. Costly Plunderer. It's my understanding that with most sets, there were some reprints of old cards, really old cards, in kind of an old style. And in this case, with Outlaws of Thunder Junction, one of the cards that they reprinted was Costly Plunder. 1 black, 1 colorless. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice an artifact or creature. It allows you to draw 2 cards. We have the extended art version of the Key to the Vault. 1 blue, 1 colorless. All right, whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, look at that many cards from the top of your library. You may exile a non-land card from among them. Put the rest at the bottom of your library in a random order. You may cast the exiled card without paying its mana cost. That's handy. That's really handy. And I like this artwork. I know I've already received the promo card that's a foil card, But I actually think I like this artwork better than the foil card. You get a nice little artifact to have in a deck run blue. Decisive Denial. 1 blue, 1 green. You get to choose one of 2 abilities. Target creature you control fights target creature you don't control. Pretty self-explanatory there. Or counter target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 3 colorless. It's not bad, it's an instant. Again, it allows you to maybe get the jump on an opponent, the advantage of surprise, that you get with any type of instant spell, but particularly a cheaper instant spell. And it's in the breaking news style. Journey to Nowhere. 1 white, 1 colorless enchantment. When Journey to Nowhere enters the battlefield, exile target creature. When Journey to Nowhere leaves the battlefield, return the exiled creature to the battlefield under its owner's control. So it's a way to, at least temporarily, exile an opponent's creature, allow you time to find other ways to possibly deal with that creature. And for one white, 1 colorless, it's not a bad way of dealing with problems. All right, the hollow one. Now this was my understanding. Part for shop tournaments, they'd give special cards to those that participated, those that finished above a certain position, and then for the winner. And this was one of those cards, if my memory serves me correctly. It's a 5 colorless mana artifact creature. It's a 4/4. The card costs 2 less to cast for each card you've cycled or discarded this turn. I think it plays in recursion decks, any decks of that nature, decks that are built around cycling. Because you get that casting cost much lower. 4/4, pretty nice, right? If you can get a 4/4, let's say for 2 mana, you're casting a lot of spells, you get a 4/4 for 2 mana, that's not a bad investment. That is the hollow one. And on to the last piece of mail for this episode. Oh, there are multiple in here. Or I am wrong again, sorry. There are not multiple in here, but there is one somewhat expensive card. Bristly Bill, the Spine Sower. 1 green, 1 colorless for a 2/2, but let's look at his landfall ability. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. So again, if you're running some type of landfall recursion decks, I believe desert decks for this style, the Desert Bloom pre-constructed deck in Outlaws of Thunder Junction is that type of style. You're constantly putting deserts into the graveyard, bringing them back. Well, here you go. Bristly Bill is the creature for you. Because his landfall, land enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter. And then let's say you sacrifice that land, common in at least Desert Bloom, and then bring it back into play. Well, now that one land is giving you multiple bonuses. Once you're happy with the number of bonuses, why not just spend 5 mana to double the number of +1/+1 counters? Now, granted, in Commander, I know certainly with my friends, they're going to target this creature right away. It'll probably get removed, in some fashion. But at least it's a threat they have to deal with. And it's a threat for 1 green, 1 colorless. I believe this extended art version goes for somewhere around $40 to $50 online currently as of the time of recording. It is one. It's not the most expensive card associated with OTJ. There are others. But when it comes to, I guess you would say, base cards that are not foils, extended arts, I believe this is right up there as one of the more expensive cards in the set, just because those abilities are so dang nice. Right? Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up today's mail call. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode.